Okay. Hello, welcome to the session. Today I'm going to be covering quadratic equation today in detailing according to IGCSE and GCSE curriculum. We'll try to cover up very fast, like try to do it in 5 to 10 minutes basically, so that you guys don't have to spend so much time over here and doing things. So let's get into the session, starting with the word called quadratic equation. So what is basically quadratic equation if someone asks you? That's the first question. Let me write down over here that as I just told you, we are discussing about quadratic equation. So what is quadratic equation? So let's say the topic quadratic equations. Okay. It's a very important topic, not only for GCSE and IGCSE curriculums, but for other ones also. Quadratic equation is basically a equation which is written as ax square plus bx plus c. All right, that is equals to 0. That is basically called a quadratic equation. This is usually the standard form, you can say, of a quadratic equation. Okay. This is the standard form of a quadratic equation. Again, quadratic equation are like a second degree algebraic expression. Degree means highest power on the variable in an equation. Okay, so for example, in this variable is x square and the highest power on x square is 2 here. So that's why it is a quadratic equation. Quadratic the word quadratic actually comes from Latin, which means like it used to be say as quadratus, which means square, and that's why the square term is basically should be taken as the highest degree there in a quadratic equation. So that's one thing. And even there are usually, if you talk about quadratic equation, as I told you, an equation with degree 2, there are many other scenarios also where quadratic equation is used. For example, when a rocket is launched, its path basically is described by a quadratic equation. Path means a parabolic path. For example, if you have a graph like this, okay, and in this graph, quadratic graph would look like this basically. This is basically a quadratic graph. This is definitely a y-axis, this is your x-axis. If your a is positive, means this value is positive, then it would be a graph which is above the x-axis. Otherwise it can be below the x-axis also, somewhere down the line here. So it can that also be possible. So that's how a parabolic graph looks like. First of all, again, as I mentioned to you, quadratic equation is kind of an algebraic equation of the second degree in x, and it is usually of the standard form which I have written, ax square plus bx plus c. Now if you talk about ax square plus bx plus c, what does this all mean? Like, what is in ax square plus bx plus c, what is this b, what is this, all of these things? Let's understand that also. If you talk about a here, a is basically the coefficient of x square. I just scroll down here. So a is basically called the coefficient of x square. So let's name it here as, this is called coefficient. Coefficient means something which is attached to x square. So coefficient of x square is basically a. If you talk about b here, which is basically this part over here, this is basically the coefficient of x. So we just name this as coefficient of x here, coefficient of x. And if you talk about the c1, which is basically this one, this is basically called the constant term. This is your constant term. So these are the three things that you need to remember in the standard form. Now next thing is to know about the roots also of a quadratic equation and how does it really work. But before the roots and everything, you need to understand that there are three methods we solve quadratic equation from. I repeat, there are three methods from which we solve quadratic equation. The first method is called factorization. This is a very common one which we use. That's the first method which we solve the quadratic equation from. The second method is called quadratic formula. This is another method that we use to solve a quadratic equation. And the third method is basically called completing the square method. Completing the square method. Okay. So in these are the three methods from with the help of which we solve a quadratic equation. Okay. Now let's understand quickly about the roots of a quadratic equation. What are they? So that we start with the first method then. So if we talk about the roots of the quadratic equation, guys, what is roots of the quadratic equation? Let's just mark it as the topic, roots of a quadratic equation. Okay. So what is the root of a quadratic equation? Root means, guys, let's say for example, you have an equation x square plus uh, x square minus, let's say 3x, and then maybe minus 4 equals to 0. This is my equation. And After solving it through any of the method, through factorization, quadratic formula, or completing the square method, you get two values of x. When you get two values of x, like such as, for example, I get after solving through factorization, maybe I got the value of x as -1 and x is equals to 4. Obviously, I will be telling you how do I get these values, but you need to just understand right now what are roots of a quadratic equation. So these values that you get for x, they are called roots of the quadratic equation, or you can also call them as zeros of the equation, basically. Okay, both of the terms are used basically to denote that. And what does it mean? Why do we call zeros? Because after you substitute these values into the same equation which has been written over here, this equation, same equation, after you put the values of x in this, you will get the answer 0. How? For example, if I'll just write down x square minus 3x minus 4 equals to 0, and if you just substitute -1 into in place of x, it would be -1x square minus 3 minus 1 minus 4. So if you solve this, it would be 1 plus 3 and minus 4, which will actually give you 0 as an answer. So after solving this, you get 0. That's why it's called zeros of the polynomial. Similar way, if you do the 4, if you put the 4 also in that way, you will still get the 0 basically. You can just pause the video and try by putting it up and check whether you're getting 0 or not. So that's one thing. That's why they are called roots of the quadratic. They are roots of the quadratic equation or zeros of the equation. Now let's understand the first method, which is basically about factorization. That what is factorization? Now, um, starting with the first part, let's say we have a first question here and we are doing factorization method here. The first method, which is first one, we start with factorization method. Factorization, guys. Now, what is factorization in method and how to solve it? Let's say we have a first question. We need to find out the roots of the following quadratic equation that I'm writing about to write using factorization, which is x square plus 11x plus 24 is equals to 0. That's the equation I have. I have to find out the factors of this through quadratic equation, through factorization, sorry. So you'll take the constant term first of all, this one constant term 24. You mark the pair of these constant term. What are the factor pair of it? So when you will know the factor pair of it, you can easily solve it. How? Let's say 1 times 24 is basically 24, 2 times 24 is 24, 3 times 8 is 24. Factors basically 4 times 6. So these are all factor pairs. We need to figure out or break 11x in such a way that by multiplying I get 24 and by adding I get 11. So if you see this pair 3 and 8, if you add them, these dot are not decimals, they are basically multiplication, showing you multiplication here. So if you add these two numbers, like if you write down 3x plus 8x, it actually give you 11x. And then you simply take common, guys. How do you take common? For example, if you talk about this x, it is made up of x and x. If you talk about this 3x, it is made up of 3 and x. So what is the highest common factor in it? X. You take that out. What is left over? You write down that inside. So what is left over here? I'm left with x and then plus sign and then 3. This is what I'm left with. So I put that in bracket. Then similar way, 8x is made up of what? This plus sign is written as it is. 8x is made up of 8 and x. 24 is made up of 8 and 3. So 8 is the highest common factor. You write down 8 outside and then in the bracket, you write down the leftover, which is x plus 3. So that way you can write down the answer. Now you take the common x plus 3 and x plus 3 you can see is common. So you can just write down x plus 3 as 1 and then another one is x plus 8 which is left over. You write down that as it is. So these are the two numbers which are basically obviously you put them equals to 0. This is an equation, that's why. So you put them equals to 0 and you get this part. Now when you put them when x plus 8 is 0, the value of x is obviously -8 because again you take this basic algebra to the other side, the sign will change because when you take any number to the other side of equals to, its sign will change. And then for x plus 3 also, if you substitute it equals to 0, you will get -3 as an answer. So these are the two roots of the equation, or you can say zeros of the equation. This is how you need to do this question. Let's just do one more question, guys. You can pause and try if you want to, but let's just solve one more question. So let's say we have the second question now, which is, let's say maybe solve x square plus 9x plus 14. Same method, guys, nothing to do much. Take 14. What are the factor pair of 14 here if you see? 1 and 14 definitely, 2 and 7 second. I need to break 9x into such a way that after adding I should get 9x and multiplying I should get 14. So x square plus 14 as it is Okay, 9x will be breaking down into 2x and 7x. Then you again do the same thing. You break it down like x and x. This is made up of 2 and x. So you take out the common. And if you take out the common here, you will be getting x common. And what is the left over inside? You can write down inside, that is obviously x plus 2 is left over inside. So x plus 2 is left over here. That's one thing. Then plus sign, because of the here the plus sign, so you have 7 here and x, and 2 times 7 is 14. So 7 and 7 again common, and then what is left over you can write down inside this bracket, which is x plus 2 again. Okay, so that's if you write down that, one second, just to properly write it down. This would give me x common, then x plus 2 inside the bracket, plus 7 common, again x plus 2 inside the bracket here, like this. So now what is common? X plus 2 becomes common, and then you will be left with the red ones, x plus 7, and you obviously put them equals to 0. Your x plus 2 is 7 is equals to 0 first, and your value of x is minus 7. And then if you put it up, x minus 7 is equal, x plus 2 equals to 0, your x would be equals to minus 2. These are the two values that you will be getting, guys. And this is again through factorization. You can, this is how easily you can solve the question. Okay, this is called factorization. Just one more question maybe you can try in your homework, which maybe sometimes they will give you in this term. They will not directly give you the equation. They will say, you know, third question, let's say we need to solve 36 over p plus 4 equals to p plus 4. Now, guys, obviously, if you see this one, in this question, they haven't given you a quadratic equation. They just want you to solve it. So first of all, you need to make it a quadratic equation, and that's the real thing here. So you'll just take this to this side, which is p plus 4 and p plus 4. According to GCSE and IGCSE curriculums, the guys like you guys solve it very like you take p here firstly. You don't apply the identity basically, and you take this bracket, then this p, and then you take this bracket and multiply with that bracket. So if I'll just take that p plus 4 here, and then I will take plus 4 here, like this one, and I will multiply with another bracket again, which is p plus 4. Okay, so now if I'll multiply this, obviously 36 as it is here, it would give me simple p square. Okay, right, simply p square, and then we have p multiplied by p plus 4p plus 4p again, and then plus 16. So that is 36 equals to p square plus 8p plus 16, you see, and then you take 36 to the other side, then it will change its sign and it will become p square plus 8p plus 16 minus 36 equals to 0. Now it would be p square plus 8p minus 20 equals to 0. Now this becomes your quadratic equation. And then you can solve it the same way. Like I told you, the factorization way, you can apply that method and you get the answer. You can do this question in your homework, and that's all from my side today. Your teacher X. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more videos and try to make sure that it would be helpful according to GCSE, IGCSE, and other curriculums, American also, AP Cal. I'm gonna be making videos on that also. Thank you.